What's up, guys? Thank you for clicking on the video. So we are continuing to put together a series of videos to explain all the generations of all the things that have gone into these lights from January of 2021 to today, which is January 2023. I wanted to be able to answer some questions for people and make it easy for them to understand. So in this one, we're going over the different brackets and the evolution of the bracket system and what those changes were, why I made those changes, and where we are today. And as always, everybody that has a kit has one of these variations of the brackets. If it's on your car, it's working fine. My car actually still has a set of the original, earliest versions of the headlight system, which was the very first ones, and they're very crude. This is actually one of them right here. This is off my car. I do currently have rounds, the newest rounds in there actually, because I was taking pictures, but I just took these out of my car. These are super crude. You can even see the pods in here red, and obviously my wiring is very crude. I've taken that through track days. I've done auto crosses, driven to California, run the canyons. No issues with the original system. So just be clear, if you have even the earliest system, you've got no issues there. This is to help people understand why I made improvements, just getting feedback from customers to make, you know, whatever replacements or whatever evolution there is better. So we are going to start by talking about the very first bracket iteration. And interestingly, yes, it has some weird lights that you guys have been asking me about. I'm not sure what I'm doing with these yet, so let's just not talk about that right now. Let me go ahead and pop these out of here. And I'm going to show you on the screen what was happening in this first generation. Obviously, in 2021, we had a big back order. It was during all of the, you know, C19 stuff going on. It was just one of those points I had to get it done and I had to make a decision. So this is the bracket that came out. What I want to show you here is originally we had a piece here. Let me see if I can get that apart. That is what your bracket would have looked like, and you would have this kind of tall piece that interfaces, and this was like a dovetail. I'm hoping you can see that on screen. And this was like a dovetail that kind of connected onto the back, and you could see some holes here. Hopefully you can see that on screen. That was originally for retention screws, but during beta testing, what it was doing was it was splitting this area right here, and so that was causing a failure. And so what I did was I tightened up the clearances on that dovetail on the front. I tightened the clearances up to where that would be high friction, but as you can see from going on and off, I have gotten the ability to kind of slide these off pretty easily. So I've directed some people as like a technical service bulletin that if you have sliding, to just go ahead and use a little bit of epoxy or something like that to reinforce that. But that's why there are provisions for screws on the back side of the very early ones. In addition, there were provisions for screws on the front side. And so that ended up not being used either. Again, for the cause that was creating splitting along the Z-axis. And so that's any axis moving upward, anything that was penetrating through that was a material that was strong like steel, especially plastic self-tapping screws. It was ripping it apart. So in the interest of getting those out, I just, like I said, I tightened all the tolerances and things like that. I have a backwards bracket, but it does say V1.4 with 8 of 21 on it. And so you can kind of tell if you look at it, it is indicated right here on the bracket. It says V1.4, 8 of 21. And so that will show you that you have the first iteration bracket also. And this is the only one that has these holes on the front side. What we were mainly seeing with that is in some isolated cases, we had a fracture right along this area right here. And this ear was a little bit sensitive. What we ended up doing was evolving into the next generation. And so let me show you what the next generation did. For one, it eliminated the holes in front because I wasn't using them. It basically also added wall thickness. I added a lot of wall thickness, put these under a lot of stress loads, and what I wanted to do was increase the strength of this area right here. And I was successful at doing that. We did retain the dovetail, And the dovetail still did function like I'm showing you here. It slid on. It was kind of, you know, a dovetail notch. We hadn't run into any issues of sliding at that point because we had gone basically through the winter months. What ended up happening was in the summertime, we started seeing some of that sliding that I was talking about. And so we started to epoxy these in production, and we would just add a little bit of epoxy there that would just kind of reinforce it. But my goal always was to be able to replace individual parts. That was kind of my original intention. It just didn't happen, but as you can also see on this bracket, those holes on the inner side were gone, and I did eliminate that peak. You can see that that peak right here is no longer there, as I'm going to show you, versus this one. See that peak? That peak would get sloppy in the machine. It was very small. It had a limited time to cool. Sometimes that would come out sloppy, so I eliminated that, and that also saved print time and things like that. So also, I don't know that if you can see on camera if I catch the light, but in this wall, I put these dimples. And these dimples were just retention dimples to just kind of grab onto the pods and further add friction to those light pods to retain those lights in place, and that basically just hold them there. So that solved any of the issues with the braking and things like that. We didn't see any of that. These have never broken. One person claimed they did, but look, there are some things that the people were doing that are just going to contribute to the issues. And so the way I looked at that is, you know, I of course can say, hey, maybe you're being too hard on them and things like that. But really, what I inevitably want, I want them to be able to take anything. I want them to be able to, you know, just, I want people to be heavy-handed with them and drop them, and I don't want anything to happen to them. And so that's what led to the final version. And this is obviously the best version. I would have loved for this to have been the first version, but obviously it's just a matter of time and engineering time and testing and just trying to get orders filled and things like that. So like I said, I had an original kit still on my car the whole time, no issues whatsoever. But that being said, this is the best system. It is the newest. Like any iPhone, the newest is the best. So that's the way it is. And so let me kind of go over some of the things that you're going to see. Number one, I'm going to show you is I can't physically take anything apart. I can't pull it apart. I can't yank it apart. I can't pull it apart. Nothing literally comes apart. And the reason that is, and I have no screws on the front, as you can see, no screws. I have nothing visible, but what you can see the difference of is I have a screw in the back here, and then I have a screw in the back of here. And what that does is that goes down along the sides here. It goes down along the sides, and it goes into a nut that captures. And what that does is locks these outer ears in place. Those outer ears now can no longer move. In addition, I made changes to this gusset. This is now a separate produced part. I'm able to print that in an orientation that puts the layers in the strongest possible position. So these are not going to break. You're going to have to wreck your car to break these. Lastly, what you will see on the bottom is more screws than you have seen in any of the prior versions. We always had screws between the brackets, and that was to hold the modules together. But now in this version, you're going to see there's a lot of screws in the bottom. And so what that's doing is there's a single screw going in between each of the light pods, and it splits these pods. It splits these pods right here. And what it does is it creates an outward pressure. And so those screws go into there. They're very tiny. They're M2 screws, 8 mil long, I believe. So they're pretty tiny Phillips heads. So no weight. That was the objective. I didn't want to add any weight. And so I do have some hardware in these now, but it has added an absolute minimal amount of weight. And so what that allows for is complete retention of everything. It has added some production time in terms of making the parts, but assembling it all has been completely reduced. That's what's brought us up to a 60 per week production rate. We could even do more. So we could probably do 80 a week now. So, you know, it has definitely been the biggest improvement, combining that with the modular wiring. It is the best system yet. And the beauty of it is I will take a Gen 1. This is, like I said, this is the first stuff I made here. And if I had screws, So this is, so the way I will show that is I will take this. This is a version of this test version before I added the screw retention. And let me just go ahead and pull these round lights out of here. And you see they slide out pretty easily, so that's why I kind of loosened it up a little bit for production purposes. Then I added that screw for retention. But like I said, this is a kit that I can tell you I prototyped in the first weeks of all of this. And that baby's in there, look at that, see? And this is the brand new bracket. These are the ones that are now just being made and sent. They are marked V2.1. You could easily identify these by that, but as you can see, they slide right in. So if you have an old kit like this and you had some type of bracket issue, what you're gonna do is just wiggle your lights right out of there, and they can be tough to wiggle out. Take your new bracket, boom, 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 and done. So there's old lights and new bracket. And what I'm gonna start doing is sending screws with these replacement brackets, so you can run those screws right up in there, and you're gonna have retention everywhere, because you can see this is pretty loose. And so with the screw in there, it'd be perfect. No issues whatsoever. So that's just all the things and changes we've made to be sure that the KnightDriveTV light kits work in an ongoing basis for all you guys that have put your money out there. I always tried to make this system as affordable as I possibly could. I wanted to disrupt the market in terms of really bringing the cost down, bringing a lot of that manufacturing in-house, and that's how I did it. I did it through developing these brackets, keeping the manufacturing in the building, and you know, with that, you're gonna have some small growing pains, but everybody's been supportive, and like I said, I've always backed everybody up when it came to having any issues with the kit. You reach out to me, but I'm making this stuff easily available on the website, and if you just have an older kit and you wanna upgrade, you always can. So I appreciate you watching the videos. Like I said, there are other videos just like this on the website and on the Facebook group, KnightDriveTV Corvette Enthusiast Group. You can find all this stuff around the internet. Obviously, ask anybody. A lot of people will tell you. And so in the last video here coming, we're gonna talk about the relay differences. But other than that, I appreciate you watching. I'll catch you on the next one.